the Freedom Team for just a couple of minutes. And then as everybody's expecting, we're going to do a live interview. Really, it's a 20 questions with eXp's CEO, Gesing Gesing. Great guy. I've known him for the entire 4.5 years I've been here. One of the first people I actually met. And we've begun to build the relationship, as we say. We're going to see each other, I guess, in just a couple of weeks, right? In the eXp shareholders convention. You want to speak to that for just a moment? What's happening?
Yeah, for sure. And was it Dallas and Sherry Elliott's event the first time we met?
It was, yeah. Well, our event as well. Yeah, Sherry was there along with a bunch of other leaders. Yes, sir.
Right. Yeah. So I remember that well, and thank you for having me on. I just yesterday became aware of some of the announcements and some of the guest speakers on shareholders. And if you haven't been to one of our shareholder meetings, we've done two things well. And I always say at eXp, which is how we've gotten to where we are. And it's that we've been able to build community without the cost. And we've introduced agent ownership to the industry as far back as 2013, 2014. So what this is, if you haven't been to one, I mean, this promises to be unlike any annual meeting or shareholder event you've ever attended anywhere, because our agents are the owners. And I say that with confidence because Randall Miles said the exact same thing when he stood up at one back in 2016. And he said, I have never been to a shareholder event where there's this much energy, this much engagement, and this much enthusiasm. And you can be sure there'll be plenty of that. And I know the dates aren't ideal this year, and I can explain why we have those dates. We entered into a 2-year commitment with the Rose and Shingle Creek before COVID, back when we were, 20,000 agents or so. I can't even remember. And so we have our second year of that obligation that we have to fulfill, and the only date that we could find that would work were these dates. But I really do hope that you'll be there. And remember, as owners, our agents participate in every single thing that eXp World Holdings does, right? So if it's mortgage, if it's title, if it's insurance, if it's Verbella, if it's frame, if it's whatever it is, that's the beauty of agent ownership. And so I respectfully, you owe it to yourselves and you owe it to your families just to be there, just so you know what's going on in the company that you own. But it's going to be a great time, and I hope as many of you will be there as possible.
And the weather in Orlando is going to be ideal, I promise. I live right down the street from the event headquarters. It's going to be a good event. It's funny, something you just said. You just said, I don't remember, maybe 20,000. Wouldn't imagine at the very beginning, and we're about to get into this, but imagine at the very beginning ever being able to project in a few years down the road saying, I don't remember when we were at 20,000 agents. It's unbelievable. What are we up to about now? What's the rough number where we are today?
I think we're about 82,000, give or take. And, continual, attraction of people that are really tops in their marketplace, tops in their game. I mean, the production's just off the charts. But yeah, back then, Eric, there was a time where, I was absolutely certain that this made so much sense that it was going to work and it was going to be a big thing. But I don't know whether it's just sort of amnesia, old age, or what it is, but you're right. It's difficult to remember back to when we were 20,000 agents. This has all happened so fast. So thank you to every single person on this call who's had a part in that, because we only grow the way we grow, and we only perform the way we perform financially and otherwise if our agents are doing what they're doing. So yes.
Well, we'll grab a quick cup of coffee. Let me do a quick administrative promo. I want everybody to know why we're here today on this beautiful Wednesday. We are all a part of something called the Freedom Team. Kim, will you pull up the doc for me? I'd appreciate that real quick. And I want to explain to everybody again what this team does, and then we'll get right to the interview itself, or the 20 questions itself. When Kim's ready to pop that up there, I'd appreciate it. And she's looking for it. You can always tell when someone does this, that means they're looking for a document, generally. The Freedom Team itself is a group of 5 or 6 key leaders within eXp, about 3,000 agents strong, 47 states, 7 countries represented, and we're continuously growing. What really sets us apart from an individual situation is we collaborate very well together. We do it on a more intimate level, directly with all of our agents. It drives Freedom Team agent success, because we know if you're informed, you're going to make informed decisions. We accomplish this, by the way, through initially our onboarding process. And if you've never experienced it, again, check with your key leader. They'll get back to us. We'll tell you how you can participate with that. But as people are onboarding into this group, what we do is we onboard them in a more intimate way. We also have a workplace group under the name Freedom Team. You're all a part of it. And we interact very, very regularly there. And we identify special events like this one here. One of the special things about Freedom Team is the white glove onboarding. We provide an onboarding agent's assistance with the transition and a roadmap to understand exactly where to find the things they need at eXp. The number one reason people come to eXp is because it's a great place to come. And I'll be honest with you, the reason they live is they can't figure it out. They can't figure out where to get what they saw on the way in. So we create a better experience for those of you that will push people through our onboarding process. eXp does a great job onboarding agents with their licenses and giving them some of the state things they require. But a lot of agents need a whole lot more. So again, our white glove onboarding is one thing that separates us from some other people that are out there. Secondly, our workplace group. Our workplace group is private to just the Freedom Team members. And one of the things that's cool about it, it's a wonderful social, but also a collaborative experience. You can post questions, we answer very regularly, and we'll satisfy any personal interaction and deliver business ideas and tactics that are specific for whatever you need. Okay, understand, eXp does a tremendous job informing all of us, but you have special questions that you need, the Freedom Team group can help. We do host some weekly events. You'll see the schedule there in the bottom. In fact, I'll show you the big schedule in just a minute. Each event is designed for specific reasons. You'll see in a minute. We have a Tuesday event every week where you can immediate strategies to gain more business. It's over and above the 80 hours that eXp provides. So again, it's especially for people that are looking, how do I generate volume today, every Tuesday at this exact time, on this exact link? It's going to be the exact same thing with a different trainer every single week. We also hope, just so you know, some agent attraction events. There's two of those, one on Monday and one on Thursday. We give you tactics to understand what is agent attraction, how to build your list, what you say to prospects, where you guide them to if you're not capable of or comfortable with showing it on your own, and then how the follow-up process should work. We give you some documents that'll help you do that and some scripts that help you do that. So if you're looking for that, Monday and Thursday, we do that. Again, same bat time, same bat channel, same bat link. And lastly, I want you to know that we as a group do have a regular event every day at this exact same time, 10 a.m. Central, and it's rounded out every week on Friday with a wonderful eXp leadership experience at the exact same time, but it's not on our link. It's specifically in eXp World in the main auditorium. Don't ever miss those Friday events. It brings you up to date on a weekly basis with all things eXp. Real quickly, Kim, will you pop up the calendar so everybody can see it one time? This is posted at the lead point. It's posted at the very top of the Freedom Team group in Workplace. You can see we're highlighted today on the 8th, but lots of good things. Don't miss the happy hour on the 24th. It's starting a little bit early for those of you in the Pacific side, but please don't be driving and drinking and watching during our happy hour. With that said, wonderful. Back to Mr. Jason Gesing, eXp CEO. We're going to run this, Jason. Again, we appreciate more than you know you spending your time with us for the next few minutes and just guiding us through your life through these 20 questions. We're going to run it like a Jimmy Kimmel, like a Johnny Carson, for those of you that remember him. Just like a 20 questions. We're just going to ask you, take a couple of minutes with each one. If it's short, it's short. If it's longer, it's longer. But I got 20 in front of me, and we're going to go from here. And just so everybody knows, Jason has seen these questions. I wanted him to be a little bit prepared. And when he saw them, he came back to me and said, man, I'm going to love answering these things. So I want you to know he's prepared as of the last about 15 minutes. But as you're about to see, he handles these things very well. Number one question. What was Glenn Sanford's? I know that you weren't here at the very, very beginning, but based on what you know, what was Glenn Sanford, our founder's vision for eXp at the beginning?
Yeah, so first of all, economic necessity, right? So back in 2008, 2009, in the global financial crisis, everything sort of came to a grinding halt, as people on the call know. Sellers couldn't sell, buyers couldn't get financing, which really put a pinch on brokerages generally with respect to the revenues in relation to expenses, fixed costs that weren't going away. So as much as anything, he sort of identified that the technology existed back in 2009, where you could have all the collaboration, socialization, but without the cost. And so that was one idea behind it. But truly the vision, as I've heard him speak now for more than 12 years, is that he always wanted to create the brokerage that he would have gone to had it existed when he was an agent. And so what that means is things like revenue share, right? Because he had some experience in other systems where he was participating in profit share, sort of saw the limitations of that, or what he, maybe some flaws or things that could be improved upon in that. He certainly was interested in ownership, significant ownership. And so as a result, today, one of the reasons why we have agent ownership in this company, and why every single agent in the company is an owner, whether they want to be or not, is because that was important to Glenn, and he thinks it's important to agents. And true to the point, I mean, if you look, it doesn't matter what brokerage we're talking about. It really doesn't. It doesn't matter about whether it's eXp, Century 21, Remax, the independent down the street. It just doesn't matter, because it's universally true that, if you don't, you have the nicest office in the world, you can have the best tools and CRM systems and lead gen and staff and desks and artwork on the walls. But if you don't have agents that are driving the relationships in the business, your business is worthless. And so we started to see that in conversations we were having as far back as 2011, 2012, where owners would say, and I know this is one of the questions, so I won't go too far into this, but say, so I've got an offer to somebody's going to buy my brokerage for $10 million, and you say, well, how many agents do you have? And they'd say 11. And the truth is, the agents really are the only asset that the brokerage has. And that was the driving motivation behind agent ownership. But go ahead, Eric, because if you're not careful, I'll answer all 20 in the first one.
Well, here's what's interesting. I'm ready to go home now. I mean, I really am. One of the things that I love doing when I can bring someone at your stature within our organization, and such a credible person, and everybody will find out that in a minute, is your ability to connect with people by just simple statements. Your ability to tell people, yeah, I remember that. I can understand when Glenn was saying that, what that would feel like. But the key thing that you just said to me was Glenn was wanting to create a brokerage that he would want to come to. Okay, that is such a strong statement. Thank you for making that. I know you weren't here at the very beginning. Can you talk quickly about your first connection with Glenn and how you elevated yourself into, or how you were elevated into the corporate structure, and what those early years were like?
I'm still scratching my head trying to figure out how I got elevated into the corporate structure. But back in Glenn launched the company October 2009. At that time, I was still a practicing attorney who also owned an independent brokerage in Massachusetts with about 15 agents. And the brokerage activities, my involvement directly in sales, as well as overseeing the brokerage, really was a measure to try and restore and preserve some sanity that had left me during the course of long days at the law office. But my kids at the time, and I think you've heard me say this, Eric, in the past, they're 2 years old and a newborn, and I had never met my dad, and I found myself driving into Boston every day, hour and a half each way in traffic. So, they go to bed at 6 o'clock at night. I wouldn't see them all week. And so for me, that just wasn't sustainable. And then I started to think about it. I look around and I see all my contemporary and my peers that are, leaving the office at 2 a.m., coming back at 5 a.m. They're not seeing their family. I think about the prices that, clients of service professionals, you name the service profession, clients of service professionals, generally speaking, are paying way too much per hour or on a project basis, because, you've got to support infrastructure costs that have become completely obsolete. So that all resonated with me very, very well. Late 2000 or mid 2009, I actually joined a company called realestate.com, which at the time was a division of LendingTree, and they were the first, I believe, to perfect the technology around online lead gen with warm telephone transfer. They spent a lot of money on it, and I believe it was a driving factor for them to ultimately not stay in business. But I was able to meet the regional manager of that company. It was not a franchise, much like us, single company. And I met the regional manager, became pretty close with him. He was one day giving a presentation on a show called The Real Estate Tomato, I think it was, with Jim Cronin. Yep. Before he presented, Glenn presented. And so I got this call immediately after Glenn's presentation saying, this is the craziest thing. You got to come see this. And the next thing I knew, I was an avatar in the first version of eXp World. And I came over, Eric, I understood the pain. I understood the reason for the business model. I was living the life of a service professional who was suffering because of sort of the obsolete approach to things. But really, I came because of Glenn. And, there's two things that are really, really important to me. Well, actually, one thing. Glenn has two qualities that immediately stood out to me. One was his intelligence, obviously. I mean, he's just an amazingly brilliant man. But the second, and the one that's really most important to me, the one that I sort of assess first and foremost and make a decision on, is whether or not he's approachable and he's humble and he has a sense of himself in the place of the world and not an oversized sense. And I look, nearly 13 years later, he has not changed one bit. He's approachable and accessible for everybody, and he enjoys coaching. He enjoys providing advice and helping people maybe get out of a funk. I mean, it's just unbelievable. That is why I joined, because I knew that he has certainly had the capability, the intelligence, but he also had what I thought was a humility and an integrity that was going to be essential for me in order to join him.
It's funny, the first time I had a chance to, thanks for your answer, by the way. First time I had a chance to meet Glenn was at a shareholders 4 years ago. And he was approachable.
Yeah.
In fact, I came up and said, "Do you mind taking a picture?" He said, "How about a conversation?" That was, I think, the first thing he ever said to me. And so that is exactly who he remains to be. And again, I appreciate the fact that you would say something like that.
Great story. So I'll speed through the rest of it. So I joined as an agent, loved the revenue share model, saw a great opportunity. I was a nobody in the business, so I started calling people outside of Massachusetts. I invested $7,500, I think, to open Massachusetts and New Hampshire, because back then we were just an LLC, and that's what people did when they wanted to open markets. And I discovered that I was pretty good at selling something if I really believed in it. And I was still a lawyer, just enough of a lawyer that I could get us set up in states we weren't in, and maybe settle some disputes. I like to boast that back then we had 30 agents, 0 lawsuits. I was the general counsel, as Glenn says. But so and then I don't want to get too far down into the weeds, but I've got involved with the reverse merger in 2013. Wrote the Super 8K. Was the first person on the board of World Holdings, what is now World Holdings, and was blessed to be elevated to the role of president, I think back in 2016 or 2014, maybe. I don't know. I've had a number of roles, but really just do the same thing all along. And again, I can't say it enough. It's the agents who are making all this stuff happen.
Well, we appreciate the fact that the agents are making it happen, but you as a corporate executive have created an environment where we can do that. So thank you for doing that. Let's go back to the personal side, because you grew up in New England, from what I understand. You went to Syracuse and got a law degree from Boston College, even though you're talking to a guy that's a huge BU fan. We're not going to talk about that at the moment. Tell me how that really prepared you for what you're doing today at eXp. All of those three things, what is it?
Yeah, so you're correct. I was born in Boston, grew up in a city called Lawrence, Massachusetts, which is about 30 miles north, and pretty downtrodden economically. Was one of two major industrial revolution cities, Lawrence and Lowell. And in the modern age, one has gone in one direction and one has gone in the other. But raised by my mom, and every single day she would drive me to school in the next door town called Andover. Some of you may have heard of a high school there that's pretty well known, but I went to elementary school there. And the landscape really for me changed every single day, because in the morning I would leave our 3-family house and be sandwiched in the second floor with no yard, and getting the oldest car that any parent at the school had. And we'd show up there, and I would all of a sudden be in the midst of all this wealth and great people. I mean, but I think that was really helpful to me, just to sort of have a lot of exposure to a lot of different types of people. And I've had that throughout my life. Past jobs, I was a sanitation worker at times. I've been on an asphalt crew. And, it's what's most important to me is that we respect every single person we come into contact with, unless they give us a reason not to. And, but my experience at Syracuse was driven by a desire to be a sports writer. I wanted to write for the Boston Globe, follow the Red Sox specifically. And that, of course, did not come to pass, and in part because I had a distant relative at the Boston Herald at the time who told me not to get into the business. I won't use the colorful language he did, but said it was dying. And of course, he was right, but it turned out to be a situation where, there's so many writing opportunities now, right? So that was a great experience. I spent a year in London, and then when I came back, I did a couple of years working, bouncing from job to job, and then ended up in law school for all the wrong reasons. But it ended up being a fantastic education. And once I got past the initial 9 years of practice, which I hated every minute of, it became apparent that that background, that education was going to really benefit me and what it was that I could do for the company. And whether it was setting us up in new states. When I say the Super 8K document went public, you sort of have to put together this compendium of what the story is behind the company, what the business model is, as well as all these different disclosures. And I look back on it now and I said that was fun. It wasn't fun at the time. It was a couple of weekends, but so it has prepared me. And to be honest, I don't know, Eric, that I'd be able to do what I do had I not had that background, because that was the value I brought at the time.
Well, I mean, the journalism aspect, to be able to put things on paper, right, broadcast it, and then secondarily, the law part of it, it's a perfect mix for what we're doing. We're glad you're here. Next question, there was an original vision. Would you say at any point that you've been here virtually the whole time, has there been a shift in vision, or have we added something that we didn't originally intend?
Well, I'd say the vision shifts only when the feedback we get from our agent shifts or the conditions around the market shift, right? So we start thinking about things like, where's the business going to be in 6 months? Is it going to be in REO? Is it going to be in relocation? If so, do we want to set those things up? And the answer is yes. Do we want to make changes because we're getting feedback, whether it's with respect to a system, our transaction management system, or some other approach? When I first started, we actually did not have a cap. So we put a cap in, pretty early on. We've never raised it. We've never raised a fee at this company. And so the vision remains, but I think what makes it exciting and dynamic and makes it always change is that, every time we add somebody, we got 82,000 people now in the metaverse. They come from all over the place. They have different experiences, different needs. And, as Glenn says, it sort of becomes like a metropolis. And how do you meet the needs of your citizens, whatever they may be? Not so you can make money, but so you can provide a really good offering and maybe leverage some of your bulk purchasing power.
You referenced something, and this is a question that I didn't put, so we'll call this a hyphen question or part B. You talked about, we're driven by our agents. Can you briefly talk about our survey program and the way we interact with the company?
Yeah, so we get feedback from agents through a variety of different mechanisms, but the one we look at most is called Net Promoter Surveys, and you've probably all received them. We issue them quarterly on the overall experience, but then we also issue them when somebody onboards. We issue them, when they, basically every stage of their life cycle. You got to have a transaction. How was the broker review? Right? Those surveys should be coming out to each of you. In each of those instances. And they may come with such frequency, particularly if you're a high producer, that you may be like, oh, I'm so tired of these things. But if you open it up, it's one question. And it says, on a scale of 0 to 10, how likely are you to recommend eXp to somebody else in the industry based on your experience, right? So not how much money you made, not, how large your revenue, the overall experience, how has it been? And we've been doing that since 2015, both on the agent side and on the staff side, because you can't have happy agents if you don't have happy staff. And we know that if we can keep those scores up, if we can have people give us 8s, 9s, that the growth will take care of itself, because people will be so delighted with the experience they won't be able to contain themselves in telling others about it. But that's the most formal mechanism, and it's sort of our Bible, if you will.
And that drives the motivation of the agent. Let's talk about the motivation of the recipient or the prospect they're talking to. How would you say, as a next question, how would you say that eXp presently differentiates itself from what we would call the more traditional, or some would call archaic, and everyone would call before internet companies? How do we differentiate ourselves between us and them?
Oh gosh, Eric. So first of all, obviously we've been able to completely upend and disrupt the compensation landscape in the industry, and we've been able to do that because of our cost structure, right? So the fact that we operate in the metaverse and that we can be in 600 or whatever the number is now of MLSs in the United States, and not have to staff every single functional role 600 times, but still provide an interpersonal and engaging experience, that certainly distinguishes us. It gives us opportunities that even others, as they try to emulate it, can't because of their cost structure. So that's a distinction. Agent ownership, nobody had introduced this in a public company way before, without just saying, you're a RE/MAX agent, go to your stockbroker account and just buy RE/MAX over the open market. We wanted our agents to be shareholders because of the good things that they do, not because they decided they wanted to put some of their money. So that's certainly a distinguishing characteristic. The one I hear all the time, though, is collaboration. And I don't have a whole lot of comparative perspective on this in terms of what sort of competitive juices flow in the traditional or archaic mortgage brokerages, but agent ownership certainly fuels what I believe is a culture where every single person wants every other single person to succeed in some sense. And it's what allows agents to sort of say, okay, I'm a little frustrated with this right now, but why don't I just offer a solution or help, be part of the solution rather than leave and get up and go because it's my company. right? So agent ownership to me, big distinguishing characteristic, Virbela certainly, and the metaverse.
You know, it's funny, we hear, again, a part A to that, or part B, we hear that, you know, we don't have an office, and I love my office and I don't want to leave, but haven't you found, because I know I have in my 4 years here, that we collaborate more than we ever really did with people at the office? The office, we tend to say, hey, Mal, how's it? How's the kids? How's this? How's that? But we really didn't do a lot of real estate discussions. Here, we absolutely do. Your point on that?
Yeah, we do. And we also have the opportunity for social because we're able to do all of the sales meetings, the compliance meetings in world, right? So, you know, to me, you know, we do collaborate a ton. And, you know, it's not that we're anti-office, right? I mean, I don't have a problem if an agent wants to use an office. What I have a problem with is when their broker or their manager or their, you know, says, we're going to expand the office by 10,000 square feet, even though nobody's coming into the 2,000 we have today. And guess what? You're going to pay for it. Right? I don't want to have agents subsidize decisions that are completely out of their control. So today we've got plenty of agents that have offices. They're branded in their name. It's all subject, of course, to the state laws. Branded in their name as much as possible. That's our preference. And you know, it's in the location that they want. It's the size they want. At the price they want. And then, you know, it's gonna meet their needs and the needs of their team. But in addition to that, of course, as you know, we've got the Regis relationship where any of our agents can go into any Regis office location worldwide and have access. You know, and we're working on a couple of other things too. And we've just launched under the Success brand, Success Spaces, which if you come to shareholders, I imagine you'll hear more about that, but pretty exciting what Ted Latz has been able to put together so far. And, you know, so just, yeah.
No, you're good.
I'm not sure what the punctuation is there, but I hope I answered the question.
Perfectly. Now you want take a breath. We're a third of the way through. We both speak pretty rapidly. My mom's from New York. My dad's from Boston. I come from it naturally. And of course, you're from Boston, so you do as well. What would you say, again, if you were talking as a prospecting agent here at eXp, and you were talking about our differences in the value of us versus what we would call the flat rate brokerages, the ones that are transaction fee only. They're popping up, and some of them are very good for their transaction fee. But what really separates us from them?
I think they're good. I mean, I think they're good for somebody who's been in the business a long time and needs absolutely no support or additive value. I mean, in the absence of value, cost becomes the determining factor. But the problem is with those models, in my opinion, is that the people I just described, the people that are producing at a high level and don't need that support, you know, you start paying $500 a transaction, in all likelihood, they're going to end up paying more than the $16,000 that they're going to pay to us because they're producing at that level. So, you know, to me, those models are, you know, I've always sort of viewed them as an end around to get into the affiliated services space, where really the money is driven. But I think that leaves a huge vacuum in terms of agent support, engagement, being part of a community, being an owner, having opportunities to diversify your income streams. None of that exists there, nor could it.
Next question. There are a number of companies, some of them very good, that say, you know, we're just like eXp, but we do this. We're just like eXp, but we do this. We're a technology company, blah, 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 blah. Let's ask a different question than most people would expect. I don't want you to talk about them. I want you to say, what have we been through that they haven't been through? What are some of the hurdles they're going to have that they may be able to manage and meander the way through, and they may not?
Yeah, the biggest one is that I don't think once in 12 years have I ever heard anybody, Glenn, myself, anybody say, we're just like this company, except, right? We don't say those words. And that's a big obstacle because if you look at what we've done, it's so fundamentally different. Our approach to the business is so fundamentally different than anything that's ever been done before. By definition, our profile, our makeup, our composition is that we go in the other direction, right? So when everybody's doing A, you know, Glenn likes to go over and check out B, C, and D, right? And figure out which of those options are going to be best for the agents. And if you come from the mindset, or, you know, if your whole goal is to imitate, then you certainly don't have that in your DNA. In my estimation, I think there are other comparisons that you can look at very, very easily in terms of profit. You can look at debt levels. You can look at, you know, I mean, if you look at the public company players in the real estate space, Remax, some of the others, the small ones, even some of the ones that you're referring to, we stand alone in terms of our financial performance. I mean, we issue a dividend. We've been profitable for many, many consecutive quarters now. So there's certainly a distinction there. But at the end of the day, you know, we keep trying to enhance and iterate on the agent value proposition. We've introduced healthcare. We're going to have some more announcements on that at shareholders. You know, that's a big deal. That's a really powerful tool in the agent attraction game, especially now when people start talking about a down economy. But I would say that overall, Our agents understand the difference between authentic and something that merely is real or exists. And I trust them to make, to know that difference and to make the right decision. But
For this next one, you may, thank you for that, by the way. For this next one, you may pull something you've already covered, or you may actually just reframe it. What would you say eXp does better than most or better than any? What do we really do for our agents that others just don't do?
sometimes it may not seem like it, but we move pretty quickly, move really quickly. I mean, I've had a lot of people even, come to me and say, I used to be part of this massive global organization, and anytime I wanted to get anything done, there were 6 levels of management I had to go through. We don't really have that problem. I mean, things happen pretty quickly here. I mean, we do our due diligence. We make sure we're checking things out thoroughly, but we can move pretty fast. I think what we've done better than anybody is build community. And I say that, to the extent of my knowledge, right? Even the traditional office-based brick and mortar companies, in my opinion, you come into eXp world on any given day at any given hour, you're going to find more engagement, more agents, more people that will want to talk to you, more people you can learn from, more people you can share with than you'll find at any other brokerage, brick and mortar based or otherwise. I think we've done that better than anybody, and I think it's really demonstrating the power of what you can do in the metaverse in terms of building communities. And of course, as agents, shareholders, you all participate in the success of Virbela and Frame. And we've had, during the pandemic, of course, the professional sports leagues were in there. We had public company auditing firms. We still have universities that are using it. And so that's what we've done really well. And I think we're the first to do it. I don't know of any other company that has 82,000 people in the metaverse working with each other on a daily basis. I don't think it's been done before, except in a video game context. And that's obviously not what we do.
Over the last several months, we've been averaging, give or take, over 1,000 agents a week wanting to onboard with us. And, a number of months ago, 15, 16, 18 months ago, we had so many coming in that was a problem, and we fixed those problems. Or when I say it was a problem, it just wasn't happening as smoothly as we'd like. We're better now than we've ever been before on the onboarding side. But right now we're at about 1,000 a week. Where do you see that going in the next 12 to 18 months?
Well, in terms, it'll be interesting to see because, if the market really does turn, then agents we know are going to get out of the business. So, that will impact some things. We think from an efficiency standpoint and a productivity standpoint, we're going to be in a really good position in a down market, though. We're going to be able to bring brokerages in. We're going to be able to help people stay in the business. Sorry, with the question?
Where do you think we're going? If we're at 1,000 agents right now, and by the way, we both know that in the last big situation in real estate that we lost almost half the agents, definitely a third of the active agents. But we also know that because of our agent attraction aspect, and because our agents here can be equity owners of the company and our cap and all the things you mentioned before, that when the market begins to settle, agents begin to look. What was happy to them before, they're no longer interested in, right? So where do you think, from a volume standpoint of agents per week, we're looking at a year or a year and a half down the road?
Yeah, I got to be careful on this in terms of projecting what we're going to get on a weekly basis. But as you know, Glenn, of course, declared that we were going to have 500,000 agents within 5 years last October. So we believe we can get there. And if you look at the different elements of the model of the company, the different characteristics that we're introducing, and I'll just say again, if you haven't looked at relocation, get into one of Don Conchatori's certification classes. We have an abundance of relocation leads that we're closing at a really high level. In fact, one of our more robust sources of reload leads, we're closing at a rate of 91%. So this is real business. This is real business. And she is just absolutely phenomenal in Diamond. But same thing on commercial, right? We're now one of the top 15 commercial firms in the country based on agent count. We continue to bring in great leaders. We continue to add different disciplines. Different subsets of commercial expertise. We brought on a chief economist to sort of help us with some things. So that's great. And of course, there's global. And if you look at global, and this is really a huge opportunity, it allows us to diversify our risk in theory financially in a down market potentially, right? Last time around, Australia, I think, did pretty well when we weren't doing so well. But the number of agents, the sheer number of real estate professionals in these other countries provide a great opportunity for us. And I was just in a demo a little bit earlier today and seeing some ways in which you can use some of our tools in a consumer-facing way that was really exciting. But I think global is enormous. And what have we done better? We've built community. I mean, we've got people speaking different languages, they're different religions, ethnic backgrounds, you name it. And they're all working together in this environment. And I think ultimately that's the story of eXp when we look back.
The two things I constantly hear from agents that onboard is, I wish I would have come earlier. And then when they've been here a year or so, they say, it feels like I've just revitalized my career. Can you speak to the second one? Why do our agents feel like they have a breath of fresh air in a comfort of an industry they already know?
Yeah, I think it's opportunity, and I think it's the fact that we're so different. You know, back in 2010, 2011, the fact that we were the only people walking around with avatars, you know, I mean, that was galvanizing. We knew we were kind of the weird guys, you know, we were the odd ducks, but we knew what the potential of that was, and you know, so I lost my train of thought there. Recenter me. So,
why are they revitalized? Why do they feel?
So yeah, it's a great story. So Patrick Keeler, who was our Massachusetts and New Hampshire broker several years ago, still with us today, I believe, as an agent. He joined us, and he comes from a family of real estate professionals in New Hampshire, been in the business for 30 years. And I'll never forget the first time he joined us, and he put a post in our public Facebook group. We didn't have Workplace then, and he said, I haven't had this much fun in 30 years of real estate. And I think there's a couple of reasons for that. One, it's a group effort, right? We're all on the same team. I think that's a bit of a unique situation. I think also, you know, the fact that it's different, the fact that there's opportunity that doesn't exist anywhere else. And that's just a fact. I mean, that's just true, right? And it certainly was true when he joined. I mean, we're the public agent ownership company. We're the company with revenue share. So there's all of these other things that you can participate in and have a sense, and really have a true sense that you're impacting the direction of the industry, which we are. I mean, there's no question about that. I mean, our impact has really changed the industry. Others are scratching their head trying to figure out, you know, how we do what we do. And I will say there's some intangible magic there, I believe. You know, we've really figured out how to build that community. So I won't belabor it.
Well, I like when you say there's an intangible. Pixie dust is accepted. I mean, if whatever the reason is, we're happy to be here. Yeah. I referenced at the very beginning that the Freedom Team as a group is really spearheaded by 6 leaders that decided that we could support our agents and we should support our agents. So Sean Sturrock, Jay Nelson, Jeff Morrell, Tim Hollenden, Kathy Carter, and myself, we've come together, and as you heard, you know, we've got over 3,000 agents, and we're represented in almost every state and district. We've gotten to 7 countries when we're rapidly looking at others. You know, when we have this kind of support within a group, can you speak to as we're prospecting other agents, and we want to talk about the group that we're a part of? We're not just an individual of 82,000 agents, but we're also part of a group that supports each other. Can you speak to the benefit of a group like ours?
Yeah, I think, first of all, it's critical, right? And one of the things that you were speaking about, the onboarding experience that you guys provided, I'd love to get you to be part of a working group, Eric, with Parker Dunahay on this, because we know there are a lot of people that are providing and spending money to provide services that go beyond what our onboarding experience provides. And we want to bridge that gap. I mean, it's a process of constant improvement. So we're hard at work now, really trying to figure out what everybody is doing, what things we might do to improve and make things better. But the value of I guess, you know, I would lose count immediately if I thought of all the agents who brought somebody on board, and the moment they joined, they never heard from them again, or they, you know, brought somebody on who opened a province in Canada, the first time we ever opened Canada, and then, you know, never heard from them again, right? I mean, it's that's not a real example. I'm just saying people are bringing people in that are, you know, they want them to have an impact. They claim to be invested in their success, but then, you know, sponsorship doesn't end when somebody joins, right? A good sponsor is constantly engaged. I mean, I can't believe you guys are doing something every single day of the week at 10 a.m. That's incredible. And there aren't words that I can use that would really sort of capture just how valuable that is. But engagement drives everything. If people feel like they're on an island, then they're not likely to stay. And if people feel like they're part of something bigger than their own self-interest and part of a community, they're going to be here for a long time. So kudos to all of you guys. And I know Mr. Morrell, I think, has been at this for a while too, if I'm not mistaken. So thanks to all the leaders and everybody.
No, we're working well together. You know, we got a group. You can't always get 6 people together and get along, but we do a really good job. Because again, for us, we believe we're blessing agents. We believe every opportunity to talk to another agent isn't to take them from where they are, but to bless them where they could be. So that's the way we feel about it. I know over the last number of years, I guess the last couple of years, attracting brokerages, independent brokerages and broker owners and things like that has become much more prevalent. We're more comfortable bringing them in. The internal staff is much more comfortable transitioning a brokerage where we didn't do much of that before. I think over the last 12 months, we brought in 450 to 500 of those broker owner groupings. What would you say pertaining to that? Why are we excited about that business, and why should we continue to talk to them?
Yeah, so a couple of reasons. This is probably one that I love the most. And I honestly, I'll confess, I've been waiting since 2016 for the market to maybe take a little bit of a dip. And of course, it hasn't happened. And I'm not wishing for that to happen, but I'm curious because, if we look back to 2008, 2009, I can remember, there were Caldwell Banker offices that were shutting down completely or merging into other facilities, right? I mean, there were people that were, getting out of the business completely. Great agents, great broker owners, right? And their agents loved them. They loved the business, but the business wasn't giving them enough back and they couldn't stay in it. And I think that this time around, we have an opportunity to help a lot of good people stay in the business. And we've got so many different examples now of brokerage owners, as you say, who have come over, gone from being marginally profitable in like one of the best markets in our lifetime to being really profitable, or have gone from being unprofitable to marginally profitable on their way to great profitability in multiple markets. But the way I think about the brokerage owner opportunity, having been a bit of a feeble one myself before, is that there are all these things that you don't even think about when you set up a brokerage, or you don't think about the 1099s that you have to send out to all the independent contractors every January. You don't think about the trust accounts and the audits and all of these things that can be headaches. And of course, agents have a multitude of challenges in their lives and their businesses. And so that can be really tough. And of course, you can't scale. I mean, if you're a traditional brokerage, you're in the MLS, you got an office. I mean, agents outside of a 20-mile radius, if that, they're not driving to your office, right? So you can only get so big. And so here at eXp, the opportunity for the broker owner is focus on the things that you enjoy. Let us take care of the 1099s and the trust account management. You focus on either getting back into sales, coaching, training, being more active in NAR, whatever it is, and leverage that credibility that you've built up both with your agents and within the industry to really grow and to help a lot of people, but to be in any of the markets that we're in. And the punchline is we put every single agent in the exact same position as the brokerage owner. It's all just a question of perspective, right?
No question. It's funny. I think you left one thing off when you talk about the broker owner's option if he happens to share and move to eXp. It's sort of like an athlete that becomes a coach, right? He's still part of the game. Well, most brokerages that I talk to, small, medium-sized brokerages, they're not overly profitable at that level. Right. In fact, most of those broker owners could go back to production and make more money with less headaches and then scale using eXp's platform. And that's what we talk to them about consistently. I'm sure you would agree with that. What do your friends think you do?
Well, I mean, they know in some sort of loose sense, right? And I think they started to maybe pay more attention during COVID because everybody else was adjusting and modifying and not engaging or interacting, and we were business as usual, and we were growing with great lengths. So they don't have I have a hard time describing what I do, so I can't imagine they ever understand.
Well, be careful, because if you remember, the last question I'm going to ask is, what's the elevator pitch? So you got to tell them what you do.
Yeah.
But that's it. So now that we know that most of them know pretty much what you do, and we are not going to ask at the moment what you do, let's ask this question. If you weren't doing what you're doing now, what would you have liked to have done? I mean, are you a guitarist for the Rolling Stones? Are you an outfielder for the Red Sox? What would you actually love to be doing right now?
I'm probably a first baseman for some Major League Baseball team, and I'm 48 now, and so I'm almost gotten to the point where I don't think the call is coming anymore, but still hold out a little bit of hope. But that's what I would be doing. I'm left-handed, so I did pitch a little bit, but I'm only 5'10 and a half. 5'10 and 3/4. So I never could get the high throws on first base, but I was a really good scoop. I could get balls in the dirt without much problem, and I was a great contact hitter. I could hit line drive after line drive. Had a hitch in my swing, but that's what I would be doing, even if only for a day.
I do have some connections to some AA clubs. If you just want to put one on, put the uniform on for a day, we probably can make something like that happen.
Well, you better be careful what you offer there. And I'll tell you a great story. So I hope I'm not taking up too much of your air.
Oh, dude, that's what we're here for.
Kentucky Derby Day. I was on Martha's Vineyard with Janet Scott, who's one of our agents, and talk about being on an island. I mean, you got to have real courage to open a new brokerage and a new brand that's based in the metaverse on Martha's Vineyard, because it's one of these places where if you're not with the right company, you're on the outs. And she's one of the best agents on the island. So she had this event. And one of the people who attended, who was not eXp, but was one of the owners of a baseball team called the Martha's Vineyard, I think it's the MV Sharks. And it's not part of the Cape Cod Baseball League, which I'm a big fan of. But one of the other owners is Bill Murray, the actor, and which was really kind of exciting. And so hopefully we're going to go back there and go to a game. And if we happen to upon him, it'd be great to meet him. But supposedly he's one of the most down to earth, nicest guys you've ever met. No entourage. Talk to anybody, and just like you would imagine if you've ever watched Caddyshack or any of his other classics. But,
sounds a little like Glenn Sanford. Very approachable.
Yeah, very much.
No question. We earn stock as agents for doing what agents do, right? When we close our first transaction every year, we get stock. If we cap, we get stock. If we attract another agent, we get stock. Once they sell their first property, we can buy stock, we can acquire stock, authorize the company to buy stock for us at a discount using our commissions, a percentage of our commissions, and of course, if you're doing decent number of production, transactions, then you could actually get your cap back in stock. So stock is equity is a word we use in our presentations all the time. We want to make sure we're saying things the right way. But in order to say it the right way, we've got to think about it the right way. Stock market goes up and down. Our stock's going to go up and down. How would you like our agents not to talk about stock, but to think about stock?
I think I would think about it, almost from a cultural perspective first, because I've had agents who did not want to be reimbursed for expenses because it's my company, they say, right? So this whole spirit of agent ownership is as powerful, if not more powerful, than the actual shares themselves. Although the shares are, but I'd really, roll up the sleeves, and if you haven't, take a look at the financials, or read the press releases when they come out at earnings time. Every quarter, we do a earnings call inside of eXPI World, which is just another word for Bella Campus, and we get outside investors. They come in and we report on the results. But there is a difference. Not every public company is the same, and not in this space. And again, I mean, if you just sort of look at the numbers, you stack the 5, 6, whatever number of companies that are alongside us in the public markets in real estate and brokerage, and really, there's no comparison. I mean, so good, lucky for us. But I would really think about also the fact that there's opportunity with ownership, but there's also responsibility. And what that means is that if you see something, or if you get a sense that there's something untoward or something offsides that could place your company at risk, our agents in many respects are the guardians at the gate. So the responsibility is to let us know. And if you see an opportunity that you think we shouldn't miss out on, doesn't mean it'll go forward, doesn't mean we'll enter into a relationship, but we sure don't want to not hear about it, because the best ideas we've had have come from our agents. So I really would think about the ownership and the stock more from what what it represents. And again, which is that our agents participate in everything that we do right alongside with us.
Good answer. Great answer. There are some that still say that all we are is a recruiting company. And one of the reasons they say that is because they're being recruited by an agent rather than what we would call a former broker, right? A broker owner. There are other companies that have been doing it for decades, but they're not considered that way. With regard to us being an attraction company, because our agents are excited. They're an owner, like we were just talking about, and they want to talk to other agents. And one of the things that comes across is they're attempting to recruit them. What would you say to the prospects that think we're just a recruiting company?
They probably heard that from somebody else, right? I mean, that's oftentimes a talking point that gets used, and the numbers simply belie the statement. I mean, if you look at our reports, again, if you go back to the press releases, look at our rate of revenue growth and compare it to our rate of agent count growth, and you'll see that the revenue growth is higher. I mean, to me, that means that we're bringing in producers. We're bringing in top producers. I mean, look at us. I mean, we're represented on the, the Real Trends 250. I mean, we got people that are, all over that list. It's simply, people that are trying to sow seeds of fear, uncertainty, and doubt in their agents in an effort to hang on to them, knowing that what we offer is unparalleled, and probably fearful that their business is at risk. So there's just absolutely no merit to it, in my opinion. We do have agents for sure that are overzealous in their attraction efforts, who maybe so overzealous that sometime you might call to actually see a property and you won't get a return phone call because the person's assuming that you're recruiting them. So really ought to be relationship based. However that relationship gets built, rather than sort of a cold, hey, let me pitch you on something. That's my opinion, just having sort of viewed those who have succeeded most. But there are a number of things people say. They've said for a long time that we can have a sustainable business model. Well, they said that 8 years ago, and here we are, right? So people will say things, and they'll say things because they want to really instill some fear and doubt among those who are thinking about joining us.
But let's be honest, recruiting is something agents here who choose to do, they do. It is part of our daily activity if that's something we care to focus on to set up.
I mean, if we ask the 100 people on the call here if they've been called by another brokerage company to be recruited in the last 30 days, I bet you would get a few hand raisers. Yeah. So, the notion that somehow it's eXp that are just running around here and recruiting agents and nobody else wants to grow, everybody else is just sitting and twiddling their thumbs, it's nonsense.
I get 3 emails a day, just so you know. What excites you most about eXp today, about our near future? What piece of eXp is about to blow up in your life in a positive way where you go, I'm so happy I'm here for this experience?
Yeah, I think in addition to global commercial, and some of the REO stuff, all of which I'm very excited about global. So it's a close call for me. I mean, global I love because it just allows us to embrace the differences of people and the different professional backgrounds, and everybody pours into one place as owners, and they want to make the best company we can, and that's so powerful. That really excites me. You may have seen the announcement last week internally that we brought on Leo Perea as president of Affiliated Services. And I've gotten to know Leo over the last couple of months, and we've been thinking a lot about this. We've been thinking about it in ways so that we can make sure we're not forcing choice onto our agents. We've looked at other companies, say you got to use this, you got to use that. We don't ever want to be that. We want to provide the best service, the best offering, and we want to be attractive to our agents and their consumers, right? And I think Leo has a really, really solid understanding. He's brilliant. He's got a great technology background. He's got a great industry background. I believe at one point he was the #1 agent worldwide. I may be right on this, at Keller. And he really has an understanding of lead gen. He understands sort of the flywheel and how to really sort of, navigate the different ways in which to provide great service. And if we're providing great service, potentially earn some additional money. And of course, if we do that, if we're successful in that, we did announce at eXpCon this concept of Rev Share Plus, where from day one, 50% of profits on affiliated services and other non-transaction related sources of revenue will be put back into the revenue share pool as an additional bonus, right? So I'm really excited about where that's headed. I'm excited about where it's headed domestically. I'm excited about where it's headed globally. And we've been very deliberate and careful. We've tried a couple of different things that were innovative and cutting edge, but I think this time we're going to really figure it out.
It is super nice when we get for our revenue portion that we receive once a month, that we're expecting a certain amount, and periodically it's more than we're expecting. It's just nice that we keep getting gifts like this. Thank you, and thank Glenn for setting up that way. As we're winding this down, just a couple of questions to go. One of them is more a private question. I hope you'd answer it comfortably. In your private world of the way you think about business, the way you think about your family, the way you think about life, what have been a couple of the most enjoyable experiences you've been through, things that are memorable because of your participation and association with eXp?
So I was with Darren Jacklin, who's one of our directors on eXp World Holdings over the weekend. He was inducted in a ceremony out in Las Vegas. And, he talks a lot about, my family, my kids are 15 and 13 today, and my wife is watching them when I'm traveling. So they don't get to a lot of stuff. But they did come to our eXpCon event in 2018 in Fort Lauderdale. And I remember they were seated in the front row, and Darren was at our table. And he tells the story about how people started clapping when I came out. And a few of them may have stood up. And and Darren describes my boys and their reaction. And of course, I came out. The first thing I said was, "You've confused the heck out of my kids." Like why? But they, that was kind of nice and special for them to see.
Well, one final question, but before we do that, I do want to say thank you so much for your time today. We do these 20 questions periodically with people. We're honored to have you here today. Your answers were perfect for the purpose that we came together. We've got, like you said, about 100 agents just listening today. We may purpose this for future use. And again, we'll do that through compliance properly with you. But I'm going to say this. I know personally the role you've played from the outside looking in and a little bit from the inside looking out. You're a viable part and a critical part of what we've done to date. I say that because we're bringing great talent, like you just said, in every day to this company with the concept that we can replace some of the things we're doing and move into new things. So I'm hoping we'll make you a grandfather at eXp no time soon. But with that said, what would be your elevator pitch as an agent, meeting a guy in a lobby of a hotel, just chatting him up, and then you end up in the elevator with him and you want to bring up the subject of eXp?
Yeah, boy, it's a great question, and I haven't thought about that in a while. I mean, back in the day, I would say there were 4 pillars, right? The split, the cap, the technology, and rev share, right? That was even before ownership. But today, I would say we built an 82,000 metaverse community. That's probably where I would start, just because metaverse is such a buzzword now, and we've been doing it for so long. And, it's with agents all over the world, 82,000 agents all over the world, some of the best in the business, with the best technology in the business. And we've been able to, approach the business in a wholly fundamentally different way that allows you to build new and even better relationships with your fellow agents than you've ever had before. And we've completely changed the comp model so you can earn more, learn more, and I'd love to tell you all about it. That might be where I would start, but that's a great question, and I don't really have one prepared, but hopefully that gets me to at least some inquisitiveness.
It was fun watching your ears get red as you were talking about it. I mean, everything else is such a corporate related question. This one is an agent related question, and we appreciate you playing the game. So Jason, again, thanks so much for your time today. We're all looking forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks in Orlando at Shareholders, and then at the next event, I guess, about 4 or 5 months later in Vegas, right? We're going to end up at EXPCon out there.
I think there's a Dallas event. I think somebody's putting.
Oh yeah, for those that are agent attraction oriented, there's one the 22nd to 24th in Dallas. Brent Gope does a great job running that event, and there's still room for those that want to come. So again, thanks for all you do. Have a wonderful rest of your Wednesday.
Thank you, Eric, and thanks to everybody on the call. Those of you who've been with us for a long time, those of you who joined us recently, it's an honor to be here, and reach out if I can do anything for you at all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.